From the New York Times, it's The Headlines. I'm Tracy Mumford. Today's Thursday, May 1st. Here's what we're covering.
This is Biden's economy because we took over on January 20th, and I think you have to get us a little bit of time to get moving, but this is the Biden economy.
President Trump is on defense after new data from the Commerce Department showed the U.S. economy shrank in the first 3 months of this year as his economic and trade policies rattled consumers and businesses. There are some quirks to how the data's measured, but overall, the new figures show a reversal from the strong growth the quarter before. And they don't even offer a full picture of the disruption, since the data only runs through March, before most of Trump's tariffs took effect. After the numbers came out yesterday, stocks dropped, continuing a rocky trend on Wall Street. Looking at the S&P 500, it's now had the worst performance for the start of any president's term in more than 50 years.
The president loves to talk about how this isn't his economy, it's an economy inherited from President Biden. But to the extent that there is a slowdown looming on the horizon, most of that is about the president's policies.
Ben Castleman covers the economy for The Times.
If we see higher prices because of tariffs, if we see slower growth because of tariffs, if we see higher unemployment, that is really a direct result of President Trump's policies. I had an economist say to me this week that if we get a recession, it will be a voluntary recession, a recession that functionally the president chose to cause. And that's a pretty remarkable place for the economy to be.
The president so far has seemed to dismiss rising concerns that his trade war could be hard on Americans, even as business owners have tried to raise the alarm. Toy stores, for example, have already said they're worried about empty shelves at Christmas, as it gets too expensive to bring in any more inventory.
Well, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30, and maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally, but we're not talking about something that we have to go out of our way. They have ships.
Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill yesterday,
Ayes 49, the joint resolution fails passage.
A bipartisan attempt to try and undo Trump's global tariffs died in the Senate. Trump's been able to roll out the tariffs because he declared a national emergency, which gives presidents the power to single-handedly impose levies. 3 Republicans joined with Democrats to try and end that emergency declaration. And the count was close enough that ultimately Vice President J.D. Vance had to go to the Capitol to cast the deciding vote to kill the measure. Even if it had passed the Senate, it had no chance of getting through the House or the White House, which could veto it. But Democratic Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon said, quote, "The United States Senate cannot be an idle spectator in the tariff madness." After months of talks and one televised shouting match in the Oval Office, the Trump administration has announced it's reached a deal with Ukraine to share revenues from the country's mineral reserves. Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, first proposed the plan last year as a way of keeping the U.S. invested in his country's future. President Trump had been complaining that the U.S. should get something in return for the billions it spent supporting Ukraine's war effort. A version of the deal was supposed to be signed in February, but when Zelensky went to the White House to finalize it, Trump berated him for not showing enough gratitude, and Zelensky was asked to leave. Now, details of the new agreement are being worked out, but the biggest question is whether it will include any guarantee that the U.S. will continue to support Ukraine. Critics of the deal say that without that explicit promise, the U.S. is basically just taking advantage of a country under attack. Still, some of Ukraine's allies celebrated the signing, saying it shows that Zelensky and Trump are able to work together. In Vermont yesterday, a federal judge ordered the release of a Columbia University student who the Trump administration has been trying to deport. The case isn't over, but Mohsen Madawi is now out on bail. He spoke to a crowd of supporters as he left the courthouse.
And I am saying it clear and loud.
Yes.
To President Trump and his cabinet.
Yes.
I am not afraid of you.
Madawi was a prominent organizer of the protests on Columbia's campus against the war in Gaza. He grew up in a Palestinian refugee camp in the West Bank and is a permanent legal resident of the U.S. Last month, the government detained him as part of a crackdown on student protesters and accused him of promoting anti-Semitism, the same justification they're using to try and deport Mahmoud Khalil, who was also involved in the Columbia protests. In granting him bail, the judge overseeing Madawi's case called the government's attempt to strip him of his green card chilling and said he received more than 90 submissions from community members, many of them Jewish, attesting to his character. His lawyer says he'll continue studying at Columbia as his case works its way through the courts. Pakistan says it expects India to launch a military strike on the country any day now, as tensions continue to escalate after a deadly terrorist attack. Last week, militants opened fire at a popular mountain getaway in the border region of Kashmir, killing 26 people. India has accused Pakistan of supporting the attack, an accusation Pakistan denies.
These two countries, both nuclear armed, have been in sort of a state of managed hostilities for a long time, for decades.
My colleague Mujib Mashal is based in New Delhi.
Every now and then there's a spark, there's a military confrontation, and every time the stakes go higher. On the one hand, people move on about their lives thinking, okay, this has been the nature of this relationship for decades. They just managed to live with each other in sort of this managed hostility. On the other hand, it's every single time of it is a reminder of how volatile this dynamic is between two nuclear-armed neighbors who continue to engage every few years in military confrontation where nobody knows how far that confrontation can go.
Mujib says that beyond the threat of war with Pakistan, the militant attack has also raised concerns about a religious crackdown inside India. The attack happened in a Muslim-majority region, and nearly all the victims were Hindus. Now, he says, some hard-right Hindu nationalists in India have been intensifying their harassment of Muslims, with reports of several Muslims being killed and thousands detained. And finally,
we're so excited to be able to release the information that Valerie has been secured. She's safe and sound after what was a rollercoaster ride.
After 529 days lost in the wild, Valerie the dachshund has been rescued. The little dog slipped out of her pen and into the bush on Australia's Kangaroo Island over a year and a half ago when her owners were visiting. It set off a frenzied search. The odds did not seem good. According to her owners, she was, quote, not a very outside, rough and tough dog. There were occasional sightings of Valerie in her little pink collar, but she ran when anyone got close. The rescue group that ultimately helped recover Valerie said it was a long process. Once they got a sense of where she was, they had to set a trap with her favorite food and pieces of a t-shirt from her owner and just wait. Valerie's a little thinner now with a few scars, and there's more to be done before she can really go home. She's got lost dog syndrome. Basically, she spent so long in survival mode, she's got to get used to people again. The rescue group said they hope to get her back to her owners next week. For anyone surprised that a dachshund made it through the wilderness, perhaps because you've seen them be pushed around in baby carriages wearing sweaters, you should know that the American Kennel Club says the breed has some real survival skills and can be, quote, brave to the point of rashness. Those are the headlines. I'm Tracy Mumford. We'll be back tomorrow.